The request arrived wrapped in elegance, but the answer came back like a blade. Camilla had asked to host a prestigious equestrian gala at St. James's Palace, believing the event would place her at the center of royal tradition, but Princess Anne rejected it before the plan could leave the inner circle. One sentence, one refusal, and suddenly the palace understood this was not about horses. It was about authority. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla expected the request to be received as graceful, almost harmless, but Anne saw danger in the polish. The Equestrian Gala, a formal charity event built around royal horse culture, donors, riders, and supporters connected to racing and service, was not just another evening on the calendar. It mattered because the late queen had treated horses as part of her private soul, not simply part of her public image. It also mattered because St. James's Palace, one of the oldest royal residences still used for official events, carried a sense of deep history that made every invitation feel like a statement. Anne read the proposal once, then returned to the top line. The wording placed Camilla at the center of the evening, not as a guest, not as a supporter, but as the figure around whom the entire gala would turn. The Princess Royal felt the insult before she formed the answer, because this was the world she had protected for decades, through discipline, competition, charity work, and stubborn loyalty to her mother's example. To Anne, Camilla was not asking for a room, she was asking for symbolic ownership. Camilla did not see it that way. The Queen Consort believed the gala could strengthen her standing, connect her to heritage, and present her as a steady royal figure among donors who valued tradition. That desire mattered because she had spent years trying to turn acceptance into belonging. Yet Anne heard something different beneath the request. She heard ambition moving too close to a tradition that had never belonged to title alone. The rejection did not come through a public speech or a dramatic family meeting. It came through a private palace note, folded back into the file with Anne's handwritten instruction. Not approved. The note, a written internal response, used to guide palace staff before plans moved forward, carried more force than any argument, because it left no room for soft interpretation. It was clean. It was final. It was Anne at her most unyielding. Charles read the response in silence, and the king understood at once that his sister had acted without waiting for his permission. He also understood why that mattered. If Anne could block Camilla before the request reached wider approval, then the gala had already become more than an event. It had become a battle over who had the right to protect royal memory. And before anyone could understand why Anne's answer carried such force, the story had to move from the rejected request to the people whose pride, loyalty, and wounds were now colliding behind palace doors. Camilla saw the gala as a chance to stand inside a tradition that had always seemed just beyond her reach. Anne saw it differently. To her, the request was not a celebration but a trespass. Between them stood St. James's Palace, the memory of the late queen, and a royal equestrian world where respect was never given by title alone. It had to be earned in mud, discipline, and years. Camilla wanted the evening to change how people looked at her. The equestrian charities organizations built around horse welfare, riding, racing, and service connected to the royal world offered more than a polished cause. They offered history. They offered belonging. The elite royal sporting circles around those charities mattered, because they had long been tied to the late monarch's private devotion. And anyone standing at the center of that world would appear to inherit more than a hosting role. The Queen Consort understood that power, and she wanted to be seen as part of it. Anne understood it more deeply, and that was exactly why she resisted. Her lifetime with horses, competition, and equestrian service had made her the natural guardian of that space. This was not a hobby to the Princess Royal. It was discipline. It was duty. It was one of the few royal traditions where applause meant less than work. Anne had earned respect through years of showing up when no cameras cared, and she felt Camilla was trying to step into the shine without carrying the weight beneath it. Camilla felt denied dignity, and that pain hardened quickly. She had spent years fighting for acceptance within the royal family, and every closed door reminded her of the long path she had already walked. The Queen Consort did not believe she was stealing anything. She believed she was strengthening her public image while honoring a tradition connected to the crown. But Anne heard the request differently. She heard royal symbolism being used without enough respect for the history behind it. Anne's expression changed when the early draft invitation crossed her desk. Aides noticed it at once. The words, "Principal Royal Host," sat beside Camilla's name, and the Princess Royal went still. The title mattered because a principal royal host is the central royal figure presented as the face and authority of an event. To Anne, that phrase did not simply announce who would welcome guests. It suggested who would control the meaning of the night. Sophie sensed the danger before the argument fully formed. She quietly warned Catherine that Anne's objection was not ceremonial, and the trusted confidant chose those words carefully. Catherine understood the warning because palace ceremony often hides deeper family wounds beneath polite language. Sophie did not reveal the warning through gossip. It was later described in a documented private account prepared for the household briefing, where her words were recorded as a sign that Anne's refusal had roots far below protocol. The deeper reason led straight back to Windsor. Camilla's request had touched ambition, Anne's loyalty, Catherine's caution, and Sophie's instinct for danger all at once. But Anne's rejection was not born in the moment the note was returned. It began days earlier, when a single phrase in a private conversation changed everything. The moment everyone later remembered happened not at St. James's Palace, not at the gala table, and not in front of cameras. It happened inside a private Windsor meeting, when Camilla spoke one sentence that made Anne go completely still. She suggested the gala should refresh the late Queen's equestrian legacy for a new era. To Anne, those words did not sound modern. They sounded dangerous. Anne heard the phrase and felt something close inside her. The private Windsor planning meeting, a closed discussion held among royal figures and senior staff before an event is approved, had been arranged to settle details, not ignite a family crisis. Yet the word refresh changed everything because the Queen's horse world had never been a brand to polish. It had been a lifetime of early mornings, quiet knowledge, loyal trainers, trusted animals, and devotion that outlived applause. Camilla thought she was offering renewal. Anne heard revision. Camilla watched Anne's silence and misunderstood it at first. The Queen Consort believed she had spoken carefully, choosing language that sounded modern, respectful, and useful for a new royal era. She wanted the gala to feel active, not frozen in grief. That mattered because Camilla was still fighting to be seen as a working royal presence with purpose, not simply as Charles's wife. But Anne did not hear purpose. The Princess Royal heard image management moving too close to her mother's most private passion. Anne's stillness became colder than confrontation. She felt the wording reduce the monarch's lifelong devotion to something that could be reshaped for public approval, and that cut deeper than Camilla intended. The Queen had not treated horses as a convenient symbol. She had treated them as part of her identity, part of her discipline, part of the quiet world where duty and personal joy met without performance. Anne knew that world intimately, and she would not let it become a polished stage for someone else's acceptance. Camilla tried to explain herself, but every word seemed to widen the gap. The Queen Consort believed honoring tradition required keeping it visible, keeping it alive, and attaching it to future-facing events. Anne believed honoring tradition meant protecting its meaning from being softened. That difference mattered because the gala was no longer just a gathering of donors and riders. It had become a test of whether royal memory could be adjusted to fit present ambition. Anne asked to see the proposed guest list, and the room tightened. A senior equerry, a royal officer connected to horses, stables, and equestrian arrangements, placed the marked copy before her. The Princess Royal scanned the names once, then again. Several guests seemed tied more closely to Camilla's social circle than to long-standing equestrian service, and that discovery changed suspicion into certainty. Anne picked up a pen and circled 3 names without speaking. Camilla felt the judgment before Anne said a word. The Queen Consort saw the circles on the page and understood that the argument had moved beyond language. Anne was not only objecting to the phrase, refresh the legacy, she was questioning the entire shape of the evening, the authority behind it, and the people invited to stand around it. The Princess Royal did not need to raise her voice. The marks on the page carried enough force. Anne left that meeting with the list in her hand and the decision forming before she reached the door. Camilla had wanted recognition, but the Queen Consort had touched a boundary guarded by grief, discipline, and memory. Once Anne had that list, the rejection became inevitable, but the confrontation it triggered would be far more personal. And when Camilla finally asked Anne face-to-face why the gala had been blocked, the answer struck harder than any official palace refusal. Camilla wanted an explanation. Anne gave her a boundary. The meeting began with controlled voices and careful posture, but the air changed the moment Camilla asked why her request had been dismissed so quickly. Anne did not look away. She did not apologize. She simply placed the marked guest list on the table and told Camilla the gala would not become a social doorway disguised as royal duty. Camilla held her composure, but the humiliation was already moving beneath it. The formal scheduling approval the palace process used to confirm whether an event can enter the official royal calendar had not even been reached before Anne stopped the plan. That mattered because early rejection made the queen consort look powerless inside the family, not merely unsuccessful with an event. The meeting centered on three things: the guest list, the host title, and whether St. James's Palace could be used under Camilla's name. Anne pushed the list forward, and the silence sharpened. The guest list, the official record of people invited to a royal event, mattered because every name suggested what the evening truly represented. To the Princess Royal, too many names pointed toward Camilla's social world rather than the equestrian service her mother had cherished. She felt protective, angry, and deeply unwilling to let the Queen's horse legacy be softened into palace politics. Camilla saw judgment, Anne saw duty. Camilla said the gala had been designed to honor tradition, but Anne heard the word honor bend under ambition. The Queen consort had imagined donors, riders, and supporters gathered beneath her name, finally placing her inside a tradition that carried warmth, prestige, and royal memory. Anne did not deny the cause mattered. She denied Camilla's authority to stand at the center of it. That difference cut hard, because it separated support from ownership. Anne pointed to the proposed title, and the words on the page seemed to grow heavier. Principal Royal Host meant the central royal figure, formally presented as the lead name and symbolic authority of the event. The Princess Royal told Camilla she had no authority to attach herself to that role, not for this gala, not under this structure, and not at St. James's Palace. Camilla's expression tightened because the refusal was no longer hidden inside procedure. It had become personal. Camilla challenged her then. She asked whether Charles knew how strongly Anne had intervened, and the question carried both anger and appeal. The Queen consort wanted to know whether the king had allowed this, or whether his sister had acted beyond him. Anne did not soften. She answered that he would know now. The words landed like a door closing, because they made clear she was willing to carry the confrontation straight to the monarch. Anne left the room without turning the argument into noise. Camilla remained behind with the marked guest list still on the table, wounded by the refusal and by the discipline with which it had been delivered. The Princess Royal had not shouted, yet she had stripped the request of elegance and exposed what she believed it truly was. Once Anne walked out of that room, the argument was no longer between two women. It landed on Charles's desk, where family loyalty and royal control collided. Charles understood the danger the moment the file reached him. Anne had not merely objected. She had documented her refusal, attached the marked guest list, and made the matter impossible to treat as a misunderstanding. Camilla wanted him to reverse it. Anne expected him to respect it. And the king, sitting alone with both demands before him, realized the gala had become a test of who truly controlled royal tradition. Charles opened the file slowly, and the silence around him seemed to tighten. The formal palace file, an official bundle of notes, approvals, objections, and recommendations used when royal decisions must be recorded, gave Anne's refusal a weight that private anger could never carry. It mattered because once a disagreement entered the household process, it stopped being a family quarrel and became something the institution had to answer. The king had authority over palace use, but Anne's standing in equestrian matters gave her objection a force no advisor could easily dismiss. Camilla waited for protection, and that waiting carried its own humiliation. The Queen consort believed Charles could call the matter back, soften Anne's language, delay the decision, or reshape the gala until it looked less like a defeat. She had asked for an event, not a public wound. Yet the monarch knew the request was no longer about one evening at St. James's Palace. It had become a question of whether tradition could be claimed by position, or whether some traditions still belonged to those who had earned them through years of service. Anne's underlined sentence stopped Charles cold. Legacy cannot be hosted by convenience. The king read it once, then again, because those words carried his sister's entire argument in a single strike. Anne was not simply refusing Camilla. She was warning him that the late queen's horse world could not be used as a shield for acceptance, social comfort, or palace image. That mattered because their mother's equestrian life had been one of the few royal spaces where devotion mattered more than display. Charles felt the pull from both sides. He wanted to protect Camilla from embarrassment because the queen consort had already endured years of judgment and distance. But he also understood Anne's anger, because the Princess Royal was not defending status, she was defending memory. The monarch could hear Camilla's pain in the silence of her waiting, and he could hear Anne's discipline in every marked line of the file. A palace advisor warned him quietly that overruling Anne could trigger resignations from equestrian patrons loyal to her. The advisor's warning did not come as gossip. It was entered into a recorded household briefing prepared for the king, making the risk impossible to ignore. Those patrons mattered because they carried credibility within the horse world, and losing them would turn a family dispute into a public embarrassment. Charles understood then that defending Camilla might damage the very tradition she wanted to stand inside. The king placed the file down without signing a reversal. That small refusal settled everything. Camilla would not receive the rescue she expected, and Anne would not be forced to withdraw the boundary she had drawn. Charles's choice would not only decide the gala, it would decide whether Camilla could still claim symbolic ground Anne considered untouchable. And when the monarch allowed his sister's refusal to stand, the first consequences did not appear in public, they appeared in Camilla's private reaction to being stopped. Camilla did not receive the final answer in a crowded room. She received it quietly, in a message so polished it almost made the wound worse. The Equestrian Gala would not be hosted by her. Street, James's palace would not be opened under her name. Anne's refusal had held. For a few seconds, Camilla simply stared at the words, and the silence around her became the loudest part of the defeat. Camilla read the message again, but the second reading offered no mercy. The palace calendar, the official schedule used to record approved royal events, visits, ceremonies, and duties, no longer carried her proposed gala in its original form. That mattered because removal from the calendar meant the event was not merely delayed. It had been stripped of momentum, stripped of authority, and quietly removed from the path that would have made it real. The queen consort had imagined herself welcoming donors beneath a historic royal name. Now that name remained closed. Charles tried to soften the decision, but restraint only made the wound deeper. The king explained that Sreet Activid Strag WSA, James's palace would remain unavailable under the proposed hosting structure, and hosting structure meant the planned arrangement of who leads the event, whose name appears first, and what authority the evening represents. Camilla heard the explanation, but she understood the emotion beneath it. Anne's influence had overpowered her request, and Charles had chosen not to force the door open. Camilla felt the rejection as another measurement of her place. She had spent years trying to become permanent in the family's eyes, and yet moments like this made acceptance feel conditional again. The queen consort did not shout. She did not plead. She quietly folded the event proposal and placed it inside a drawer, rather than leaving it on the table. The gesture was small, but it carried the ache of someone putting away not just a plan, but a hope. Anne received confirmation that the gala had been halted, and she closed the folder without satisfaction. The Princess Royal had won the argument, but victory did not warm her. She knew Camilla would feel blocked, perhaps even humiliated, and she knew Charles would carry that pain back into private life. But Anne's resolve did not break, because the late Queen's equestrian world had meant too much to be softened into a gesture of palace repair. Charles watched the distance grow between the two women, and the monarch understood the cost of his own restraint. He had protected Anne's authority, but he had left Camilla exposed. He had preserved the old boundary, but he had deepened the newer wound. The king could not pretend the decision was harmless. It had stopped a gala, yes, but it had also revealed how fragile belonging still felt inside the royal family. Camilla kept the drawer closed. Anne kept the folder closed. Charles kept the reversal unsigned. The cancellation seemed final, locked beneath silence and procedure, until one private conversation revealed that Anne was not trying to punish Camilla. She was trying to protect something older. But just when the palace seemed divided beyond repair, Anne agreed to one conversation that changed the meaning of the entire crisis. There were no aides in the room when Anne finally sat down with Charles. No marked guest list, no public language, no polished palace explanation. Just a sister and a brother facing a truth neither of them could escape. Camilla had been wounded, but Anne believed something more fragile had almost been lost. The meaning of a royal tradition their mother had carried with stubborn, lifelong devotion. Anne waited for Charles to speak first. and the silence between them carried years of family history. The cancellation, the formal stopping of the gala before it could move forward on the palace calendar, had protected the institution, but it had not healed anyone. Charles admitted Camilla felt humiliated, and the king did not dress the words in comfort. He knew the queen consort had hoped the event would give her public dignity, and he knew Anne's refusal had made that hope feel like another closed door. Anne listened without triumph. The Princess Royal did not deny Camilla's pain, but she would not apologize for protecting the boundary. Equestrian legacy, the royal tradition built around horses, riding, racing, breeding, charity, and lifelong service, was not glamour to her. It was discipline. It was sacrifice. It was the part of the late queen's life where duty and private joy had met without needing performance. Anne explained that clearly, not through a public statement, but in a recorded private conversation, later summarized for Charles's confidential household file. Charles leaned back as the words settled. The king understood that Anne was not defending a chair, a title, or a guest list. She was defending the meaning beneath them. That mattered because the monarchy survives through symbols, and once a symbol is used carelessly, it becomes weaker for everyone. Camilla had wanted belonging, but Anne feared belonging was being built on the wrong foundation. The queen consort saw refusal. The Princess Royal saw rescue. Anne finally confessed what had truly shaken her, and the confession came directly in that private conversation with Charles. Hearing Camilla say the gala should refresh the legacy had made the Princess Royal feel their mother's work was being polished for status. The words still hurt her. They turned devotion into branding, service into presentation, and memory into something that could be adjusted for convenience. Charles did not interrupt, because the king knew Anne was speaking from grief, not cruelty. Anne offered a compromise before the silence became too heavy. A smaller charity event could happen later, but not under Camilla's proposed title, and not with the same guest structure. Charles accepted it slowly, realizing Anne's refusal had prevented a deeper public scandal from unfolding. The palace now had a way forward, but the outside world had already begun forming its own judgment. And when the story finally broke beyond palace walls, the public did not see a scheduling dispute, they saw a royal daughter defending her mother's sacred ground. By morning, the refusal had become more than palace gossip. It was a national symbol. One newspaper front page showed Anne in riding attire beside the headline, "The Princess Who Said No, Outside Street." James's palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates, some carrying flowers, others holding old racing programs linked to the late queen. The message was clear. Anne's rejection had touched something deeply emotional. Anne saw the headline before she heard anyone explain the reaction. The newspaper front page, the main cover story used to frame a national issue for readers, had turned her refusal into a public statement before the palace could soften it. That mattered because the story was no longer about an event being canceled. It was about whether royal tradition could be inherited through title or earned through service. The Princess Royal had wanted to protect a boundary quietly. Now the whole country was watching that boundary harden. Camilla watched the coverage privately, and each sentence seemed to make the rejection louder. The queen consort had already lost the gala, but now she was watching the public decide what that loss meant. Broadcasters explained the dispute as a battle over legacy, and one presenter described the rejected event as the gala that exposed the limits of Camilla's symbolic reach. The words landed heavily because they turned a private defeat into a national label, and Camilla knew labels can outlive explanations. Anne felt no triumph as support gathered around her. The Princess Royal understood that public approval can still carry private damage. She had protected the late queen's equestrian legacy, but the protection had wounded Charles's wife and placed the family divide in plain view. That mattered because the monarchy depends on unity, even when its members disagree. A victory that exposes fracture is never clean. It shines on one person while leaving another in shadow. The crowd outside St. James's Palace gave the story its lasting image. The palace, a historic royal residence used for official ceremonies, receptions, and formal family business, now stood at the center of a debate over memory and belonging. A woman near the gates was recorded in a street interview saying, "Anne protected what the queen loved most." She did not sound angry. She sounded relieved. That quiet relief became more powerful than outrage, because it suggested the public had already chosen the emotional meaning of the refusal. Charles heard the broadcaster's line repeated in a household briefing, and knew the palace could no longer treat the matter as a scheduling dispute. The king understood that Anne's position had strengthened, not because she had won attention, but because the public believed she had defended something sacred. Camilla's position, meanwhile, had become more delicate. The queen consort could not openly challenge a decision, now wrapped in the late monarch's memory. The headlines settled, but the pressure did not disappear. Anne's refusal had become a symbol of earned duty. Camilla's disappointment had become a lesson in the limits of rank. Charles now faced the task of turning private pain into public clarity. As the crowd faded and the headlines settled, the monarchy had to decide whether this was a family embarrassment or a defining statement about legacy. In the end, Anne's refusal was not remembered as a personal insult. It was remembered as the moment the monarchy drew a line around a legacy too intimate to be managed like a social event. Camilla lost the gala, but not her place. Anne won the argument, but not without pain. And Charles learned that sometimes the strongest act of royal service is not granting permission, but refusing it. Camilla understood the final verdict before anyone tried to soften it. She would not host the Equestrian Gala at St. James's Palace under her proposed title or guest structure, and that decision carried more weight than one cancelled evening. The guest structure, the planned arrangement of who is invited, who leads the event, and what message the gathering sends, had become the heart of the dispute. It mattered because royal events are never only social occasions. They tell the public who belongs at the center of tradition. And on this occasion, the queen consort had been told she could not stand there. Anne accepted the outcome with discipline, not satisfaction. A smaller charity event could still happen later, but only under rules that protected the late queen's equestrian legacy from appearing politicized. That mattered because the monarch's horse world had been built on devotion, patience, and personal knowledge, not on image repair or public positioning. The Princess Royal knew she had protected something sacred, but she also knew protection had come at a cost. Camilla had been wounded, and Charles would have to live beside that wound. Charles allowed the refusal to stand because he recognized the difference between stubbornness and earned authority. Anne's authority came from years of service, competition, sacrifice, and loyalty to the world their mother had loved most. The king understood that overruling his sister might comfort Camilla for a moment, but it could weaken the very tradition the queen consort wanted to join. He chose stability, and that choice was lonely because it offered no easy comfort to anyone. Camilla accepted the decision quietly, but silence did not mean the pain had vanished. The queen consort knew that resisting further would deepen the damage, turning disappointment into open conflict and making the monarchy appear divided over memory itself. She had sought belonging, and in seeking it, she had discovered that some royal spaces cannot be entered by rank alone. They must be earned through time, trust, and the kind of devotion no invitation card can create. Anne carried the cost of saying no, knowing she had protected her mother's memory while hurting her brother's wife. The Princess Royal did not reject Camilla to diminish her. She rejected the request because the legacy at stake was too intimate to be reshaped for convenience. The palace's final message emphasized legacy, discipline, and trust, quietly confirming that tradition could not be claimed by proximity alone. This was the closing judgment of the crisis. Camilla sought belonging, Anne defended memory, Charles chose stability, and the monarchy proved that some royal doors remain closed when legacy demands protection. Anne did not win with cruelty. Camilla did not lose her place entirely. Charles did not escape the pain of choosing. But by saying no, the Princess Royal reminded the crown that duty is sometimes strongest when it refuses to bend. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.